elected. Now, one thing that both parties agree on is that no matter who you voted for, no matter how you feel about this war or any war, no matter who you are, the one thing we all must do as Americans under any circumstance is band together and support our troops. Now, for some, the phrase support our troops is merely a euphemism for support the policies that put them there in the first place. For others, in particular activists, it's a safe way to take an unqualified stand against this war and all war. Many who passionately identify as anti-war will just as passionately defend the troops, no questions asked. And the reasoning usually is along these lines. They were just following orders, or they signed up because they needed the money. Now, I hope I don't have to explain that there's no legal or moral foundation to defend anyone's actions based on the fact that they were just following orders or that they were poor. If that was the case, then activists struggling to fight unfair labor practices would strike out against Nike and the Gap, but hang yellow ribbons for the men and women who run the day-to-day operations in a sweatshop, say, in Vietnam. Now, another reason that all people of all stripes support the troops is that we're told constantly that they're defending our way of life and that they're fighting for our freedom. This is an interesting paradox. I can't tell you how many times I've received an email that says something like this. While you're in your comfortable home making money as a writer, insert laugh track here, those brave men and women are over there fighting for your freedom to spout your anti-American crap. Now, I would propose that the truth is diametrically opposed to that. The presence of those troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, who volunteered to be there, make it considerably harder legally and culturally to speak your mind in 2008 America. Since 9/11 and the bogus war on a tactic, terror, we have seen our civil rights eroded, we have seen our freedom of speech taken away. It becomes harder and harder to speak out and say something that's uncomfortable here in the land of the free. Now, whether those men and women know it or not, they're not fighting for my freedom to stand here and say this to you. In fact, if I said half of what I said so far tonight as I was walking through an airport, I'd be at least detained, at most arrested, here in the land of the free. So whether or not they know that, they're not fighting for my freedom, they're more likely fighting to keep the world safe for petroleum. Now, it should come as no surprise that my take on the support the troops mantra is greeted with unrestrained hostility from all sides of the political spectrum. What it seems to offend the right-wing flag wavers the most is when someone like me actually makes use of the freedom that they claim to adore. Somehow I'm ungrateful for my liberty if I have the audacity to exercise it. These so-called patriots claim to celebrate freedom but want to refuse my right to exploit it. These are the same folks that walk around saying that they're proud to be American as if they had anything to do with it. Now, the most predictable knee-jerk reaction from the liberals is that I'm too radical, that I'm going to hurt the movement by alienating soldiers and their families. Now, I promise to get back to the word radical at the end of the talk. For now, I'd rather focus on the word movement, and this isn't semantics, but rather after this long build-up, it essentially gets to the heart of my discussion tonight. The state of global affairs has long passed the proverbial tipping point and is more likely flirting with the dreaded point of no return. Yet most of us here in this country have mistaken the occasional weekend protest with a full-blown movement. Well, here's a news flash. Anti-Bush bumper stickers and a dedication to energy-efficient light bulbs do not constitute a movement. Neither do candlelight vigils, petition drives, voting drives, letters to Congress, monthly donations to Greenpeace, yellow, red, or pink ribbons, or becoming the change you wish to see in the world. They say all you need is love. Well, that and $1 million a minute. Now, this isn't to denigrate any individuals taking part in such efforts. It's to delineate the fact that there's a huge difference between a sincere minority of Americans doing that and a tangible, functional, effective movement capable of inciting, inspiring, and demanding social change. The rest of the world seems to know that. We here in America don't. Arundhati Roy once said, "People from poorer places and poorer countries have to call upon their compassion not to be angry with ordinary people in America." Ward Churchill takes it further, saying those same folks from poorer places and poorer countries have, quote, "no obligation, moral, ethical, legal, or otherwise, to sit on their thumbs while the opposition in this country dithers about changing the system." Consider this. If your neighborhood was bombed into the Stone Age and your children buried in the rubble, And the taxpayers who paid for those bombs, in some case willingly paid for those bombs, were walking around saying that you were ignorant enough and narrow-minded enough to hate them for what they believe in and because they're free. How forgiving would you be? Americans wield more influence and power than any people on the planet, yet most of us live our lives in such a way as to threaten every living being on Earth. What I've talked about tonight and what I will talk about and much, much more is being done in our name. In other words, with very, very few exceptions, there are no innocent bystanders in America. Now, I have a question. How many folks here tonight believe that the planet is in peril? When I say the planet, I don't mean literally it's going to blow up, that the ecosystems, the communities, the societies, the people, all living things on this planet. Show of hands, how many people think the planet is in peril? Okay, most people. The folks who don't think that, I'd like to know why. Now, second question. How many of you think that the people in power, the ones most responsible for putting the planet in peril, will relinquish that power voluntarily anytime soon? Show of hands. So we have most people in the room think the planet is in peril. Nobody thinks that those most responsible for putting it in peril will give up that power anytime soon. So it begs the question, how much more are we willing to tolerate before we take action? Now here's some of what we were already enduring without much serious fuss. Epidemics of preventable diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Poisoning of our air, water, and food, including mother's breast milk. Global warming, climate change, animal and plant extinctions, disappearing honeybees, destruction of the rainforest, topsoil depletion, etc. More than 1/3 of Americans either uninsured or underinsured when it comes to health care. More than half of the world's top 100 economies are not nations, they're corporations, and 61% of American corporations don't even pay taxes. We have the largest prison population on the planet, overt infringement of our civil liberties, a bloated defense budget, unilateral military interventions, war crimes committed in our name, the legalization of torture, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. Before you know it, this government will start spying on American citizens and detaining prisoners without charges while allowing corporations to ravage the planet in pursuit of profit, destroying entire... There I go again. They're already doing all of that, and none of us have stopped it. Now, can someone tell me what time it is? 9:10. 9:10 on a Thursday night. Since 9:10 on Wednesday night, in the past 24 hours, and every 24 hours before that, and seemingly every 24 hours after that, 13 million tons of toxic chemicals were released across the globe. 200,000 acres of rainforests were destroyed, more than 100 plant or animal species went extinct, and 45,000 human beings starved to death, most of them children. What will we say in 20 or 30 years when we're asked why we didn't do more right now to stop all of this? Why we were more concerned with Gwen Stefani's tattoos than how our tax dollars are spent? Why we focused on imaginary evildoers instead of the corporate pirates raping our planet and controlling our minds? It's not as if we don't have choices. You could ask yourself, what would you rather have? A consumer culture or an ozone layer? SUVs or forests? Cell phones or eastern lowland gorillas? It's a valid question in 2008. Will we be willing to give up our ability to text TTYL to our BFF if it means that we could possibly save an entire species from going extinct? Where we are today is not some preordained theology or some unstoppable force of nature. Where we are today is the result of human decisions. Had different decisions been made, we probably would be in a different place now. If different decisions are made now, we can only hope that we could have different outcomes in the future. But one thing for sure is that the human beings and all living things that come after us won't care if we gave speeches like this, or we marched in protests, or we always held open the door for little old ladies if they have no clean air to breathe. And they won't care if we drove a hybrid or ate organic or switched to recycled newspaper if they don't have clean water to use. And I promise you, they won't care whether you voted for John McCain or Barack Obama if they're stuck on a toxic, uninhabitable planet. Now, they probably would just want to ask us one simple question. Why did you stand by and allow everything to be consumed